Hey you guys, it's Peter, and welcome to my channel, Peterisms, where I tell stories of my life and just little things that I have learned as I have grown into the person that I am today. And I got up very early today. Well, I went to bed very early, and then I got up very, very early this morning, which for me, I would usually consider late. But it's early morning for most people. So I ended up watching the end of the season of Vanderpump Rules that I was on. And then my husband was getting ready for work. That's how late. I took a nap that was supposed to be a nap, supposed to be like an hour. It ended up being very, very late. But anyway, my husband was getting ready for work, and today I have cousin fun day with my cousin Caroline. And so I was like, you know what, I'm a little bit tired, but I'm still awake because I got like 6 hours of sleep or something like that. And so I was like, make a cup of coffee. I actually just warmed it up in the microwave. Make a cup of coffee and make some videos. And then if you have your videos done before you go with Caroline, when you come home, you can just lay down and take a nap and enjoy the later part of the afternoon and early evening. And yeah, and so that's my plan today, is just to film a bunch of videos early this morning, take a shower, get ready for Cousin Fun Day and all of that. So I was trying to figure out what to make a video about on this channel for today. And I actually got quite a bit of comments on the last video that I did where I was talking about people pleasing. So I wanted to kind of talk about an extension of that today. Like I said in previous videos, I said it in many videos, if you have topics, anything I've ever talked about in my life, whether that's to do with grieving or recovery and addiction, or whether that has to do with learning from mistakes in our life, or just anything that I've ever talked about, you know, on here, like self-care, things like that, put it in the comment section below. Share with me a little bit about why you're asking that question, or what your interest is in that question, and I can just share personal experience based on the question that you ask. Everything that I share, you know, it's just based on personal experience. I'm not an expert or anything like that. So kind of like a Dear Peter, you know, if you have a Dear Peter question, put it in the comment section below and I might pick it for a video. So I was looking through some of these comments on my last video that I did about people pleasing, and I got some interesting comments from people. A lot of people sharing experiences of what they grew up and how they grew up, and a lot of people explaining that they had been people pleasers in their life and they weren't anymore, that they were still struggling with it. And two comments kind of stood out to me, and I don't want anybody to feel like they're called out, but this is something that I struggled with as well, and so I think it's actually a fantastic, these are two fantastic comments to talk about in a video. And the first person said, my people pleasing used to be mostly about needing to be liked. Now it's mostly just to keep the peace. Either way, it's something that I continue to work on. Peter's standing up for himself era really, really inspired me, and I want to say thank you for that. And then somebody else said, thank you for this video. My need for people pleasing is slightly different than yours, but definitely agree it's not a badge of honor. I don't want anyone to be upset, mostly because I am so tenderhearted and I feel their pain. This person goes on to talk about therapy and trying to eventually get through this and have more understanding of why I'm actually this way, why I need it, and talked about some other things that they're working on. So I wanted to kind of address this need to make people happy or please people, not from necessarily being liked or validated, which this one person addressed that and said that they used to be like that. And I had said that in my video, that that was something that I used to do, that I used to find this need to be a people pleaser because I wanted ultimately validation. If I looked at my motives, I wanted validation, I wanted people to like me. One of the other reasons why I was a people pleaser was to keep the peace. I didn't like confrontation, I didn't like arguing, things like that, right? So if I could do things that would make, I think there's a fine line. I think, you know, it's always interesting to me when, and it's, you know, things I used to do in my life too. It's like, if I ever played the victim and somebody said to me something about playing the victim, I'd be like, well, I'm not playing the victim. I don't know what you're talking about, you know? Or, you know, if you say something like that, it's like whenever I do make a video about like when people play the victim, I'll always get like one comment on there and people will be like, well, there's a lot of reasons why people should be the victim. I'm not talking about serious issues, okay? I'm talking about when you don't let something go and it's really burdening you more than the other person, and we struggle with letting that go. But I always like, if I'm talking about the victim, or I'm talking about somebody playing the martyr or a people pleaser, or these terms that are not necessarily nice terms, whenever I talk about it in the video, I always get like one comment from one person, and they're like, well, there's reasons, you know, like whatever. And these comments are not that. I just want to say that I would not pick out that comment to address in a video, because I wouldn't want that person called out. Because ultimately, and I know because I used to react that way when people would say things to me, but I've worked on those things, is that defensiveness, that initial defensiveness of, like, if I say in a video, you know, like, take a look at your motives of why you're a people pleaser, and your initial response to that is, well, I'm a people pleaser because I'm like a really nice person and I want to do really nice things for people. Okay. That's great, okay, but you can do nice things for people. You can be a kind, caring, loving person that just does random acts of kindness, is compassionate, is paternal, maternal, you know, is caring and loving, and it doesn't have to be people-pleasing. There's a difference between that, right? And like I said, I read on here in my, like I said, my last video, I read on here the definition of people-pleasing. Hold on a second. Definition. I think I looked up people pleaser, so let's see if we get a different definition today. Definition. Okay. People pleaser is not a medical term, so there's no clinical definition for what it means. Generally, it describes a person who consistently strives to please others, often sacrificing their own wants or needs in the process. So most people want to feel loved and valued, especially in close relationships. And so I think, like, when you look at it that way, if you are willing to be, you know, striving to please others at the expense of your own wants or needs, why are you willing to do that? What is your motive? What are you getting out of that? That is what I had to look at, right? I think it's really, like I always say, in anything that you're working on, the first point is awareness. The fact that people are saying in here, I used to do it because of this, but now I do it because I just don't like conflict, or I, you know, just want, what, how does this person say it? I just want to keep the peace, which I think is why so many people are people pleasers. I so relate to that comment because I used to do that, right? Like, it's easier just to keep the peace. But sometimes when you are a people pleaser, what that means is that you are sacrificing your own wants or needs, or belief systems as well, you know, that you don't stand up for things. You know, for example, back in the day, and I've shared the story in my vlog and maybe even over here before, but there was a small group of men that I worked with when I worked in treatment, and the majority of the people that I worked with were women. There was a small group of men. And, you know, I would be forced in social circles with them and things like that. And when I would sit around, you know, like, they were, you know, very kind of like alpha male types, whatever. And they would consistently make gay jokes, you know. They'd be like, oh, have you heard this one or whatever? And it was always, you know, some offensive gay joke that when I heard it, it was like, you know, it's kind of like was, you know, tingles down my spine as the only gay man in this group of heterosexual men. It was very uncomfortable for me, right? And so at first, I mean, not just at first, for years, I would just kind of laugh it off and be like, you know, whatever. But it would bother me. And so there was the day that I just was like, I'm not doing this anymore. I mean, I am not going to be the butt of the joke and laughing at the joke. I'm not willing to do that anymore. This is years ago, okay? This was the initial beginning of the standing up for myself era. That era has taken me many points to get to the point where I am now just standing up for myself. You know, and I love that this person says in here that they love, that, you know, they love my standing up for myself era. I explained at the end of the year that that was like a period that I had to go through last year, and I don't think it was necessarily my best look, but I had to go through that to where I'm just to the point now. And I think it was a combination of things way back from my youth all the way today where I kind of reclaimed my power. And I'm no longer in my standing up for myself era. I'm just standing up for myself, you know? And so I can remember making a decision and like being like, I'm not going to laugh at these jokes anymore. I'm going to say something. And the next time that it happened, I was like, you know, I don't think that that's funny. It's offensive to me. And the initial response, you know, that you would think from kind, caring people would be like, well, I'm sorry. Like, I didn't mean to hurt your feelings. And I think that that did happen like one time. But like the initial response was like, you know, we're just joking. Like, why are you taking offense to this? Well, because I'm a gay man and you're making fun of gay men. Like, that's offensive to me, right? And I think at first even I kind of like brushed it off, but the more comfortable I got, because it's not comfortable to stand up for yourself. It's not comfortable to say to somebody, what you are saying to me hurts my feelings, okay? You know, especially when you have said to people in the past, like I had, because we're taught from a very young age, if somebody's hurting your feelings, tell somebody, do something about it. Tell that person, you're hurting my feelings. Well, when you tell somebody from a very young age, you're hurting my feelings, and they basically say, I don't care, then you kind of like over time, you get pushed down and pushed down and pushed down where you don't want to do that anymore, right? And what ends up happening is you become to this point, you come to this point where you start pleasing other people, whether it's people that you like or people that you don't like, whether it's coworkers or family members or people that you love or people that you're in conflict with. You basically just, you know, nod your head and go along with it because you don't want conflict or you just want to keep the peace. I am not there today, okay? I am not, well, okay, first of all, my family is very, very small. I don't really have anybody in my family that I have to keep the peace with, just so you know. I feel very blessed about that. I had people in my life that I felt like they would say things that were offensive, that they didn't even know was offensive. And, you know, and I'm not somebody that will say that's not my place to educate you, even though I don't necessarily feel, I feel like it's not my place to educate somebody. I also feel like maybe they're not going to hear it from anybody else but myself, right? For example, we were on this trip in Mexico. We met some people and we were talking to them, and they were talking about something that's very personal to me, like recovery stuff. And they were kind of spewing ignorance a little bit, and in kind of like a joking way, but basically kind of being very patronizing, like I didn't know what I was talking about. I had already shared this part of myself, and, you know, I said, you don't really know what you're talking about. I've walked, you know, through these, you know, in these shoes for a very long time. And they countered me on it. And I sat there for a second and I thought, okay, just shut your mouth. It's not worth it. You don't know these people. And I thought, no, F that. Like, I'm not going to continue to let people get away with that, with saying things to my face that I don't agree with. I don't have to be combative about it, right? And so I can remember sitting there, like we were on the beach and whatever, and I said, you know, I'm not like trying to argue with you, but this is something that's very serious to me. It's something that's very important. Like, we can talk about something else, but I can't continue to sit and just have this conversation with you where you literally haven't walked in my shoes and you don't know what you're talking about, you know? And Alex, my husband, was very supportive of it, you know? And the tune kind of switched on these people. And then they talked about it a little bit, but it was almost kind of like they were trying to convince me of their point of view. And about halfway through the conversation, I just looked at Alex, because he was having conversation with these people as well about the same topic. And I just kind of like pat him on the shoulder. I said, I'm gonna go take a walk down the beach. You wanna go with me? And he goes, yeah, absolutely. When we came back, those people weren't there anymore. So I think that they didn't really want to have a conversation either. But I'm not going to sit there and muddle down my belief systems and water down what I believe in and what's important to me because I want to keep the peace, okay? If about things that are important to me. And the things that are important to me are things that are very personal to me, all right? And everybody that is in my life today knows what's personal to me and knows what's important to me. And I'm not saying that they can't share their opinion with me. Have a conversation with me about it, right? But please don't be patronizing to me. Please don't belittle me. Please don't spout ignorance to me that you don't know what you're talking about because you haven't walked in my shoes. I'm not willing to keep the peace at that expense, you know? And years ago, I had a few friends of mine in my life that I really did try to keep the peace with. And I look back on that and I think to myself, you really tolerated a lot of BS. You really put up with a lot of BS at the expense of keeping that friendship that really wasn't that important to you at the time anyway. Like, why? Why were you willing to do that, you know? And so I'm not willing to do that today. I'm just not, you know? And it's not like I sit on this almighty cloud and I'm like, oh, people must do what I have to do. No, I'm sure that there have been people in my life that have been like, have to discontinue our friendship as well. Those are the rules you make for your own life. But I do not want to, if I'm doing something out of the kindness of my heart because that's what I want to do and I'm compelled to do that, okay? And I'm not going to give examples of those things because I don't feel the need to do that, right? I try to practice altruism, which is just doing random acts of kindness or do nice things for people and not telling anybody just because I want that to be who I am. Those are the people that I admire and respect the most, or people that just do kind acts and don't tell anybody, right? That's who I want to be. Working on it, not necessarily 100% there. Yeah, you know, I might do something nice for somebody and like really want to tell somebody, but I'm trying not to do that. And so, but you know, I can do nice things for people, but I also have to really check my motives for a while, right? Like, what is my intention? And I'm not it could be anybody in my life, right? Like, am I doing this for some ultimatum or some end game, some, you know, like hidden motive? Like, why am I really doing this? And not everything. I mean, you know, buying somebody a coffee, here I said I wasn't going to say anything, but like buying somebody a coffee or a meal or just calling somebody up and checking on them. Maybe my motive is I just missing that person. I want to be nice to them, right? Maybe I feel like somebody's down or whatever, and I hope that they would do the same thing for me when I'm going through that. But I am no longer willing to, and I guess I'm trying to inspire somebody out there. I am no longer willing to be a people pleaser and shut my mouth and let people, and I don't know if that's the situation with the people that have said this, but I'm no longer willing to let people belittle me or patronize me or make me feel like I'm less smart or my opinion matters less to keep the peace, okay? The peace is really not that important to me if you want to know the truth. And honestly, having some of those people in my life is really not that important to me either, you know? I haven't had to sever ways with many family members, but I will say I've had to do that with one or two throughout my, you know, 29 years of being sober. With people that were not healthy for me in my life. I've had to do that with several friends of mine. I'm sure people along the way have had to do that with me, but that's okay. I don't, like, you know, I don't have people in my life today that what they believe in and who they are and who they exist do not align with my belief system either, because I just am not okay with that. And I'm talking on a big level stuff, right? I'm talking about on big level stuff. I'm just not okay with that. I'm also not okay with, you know, I was talking to my friend Tanya the other day about this. I think I even mentioned this in a video. We were talking about, we had like one argument that lasted a few hours in our entire 26, 27 year relationship, right? Like, that's it. And she said something to me about the fact that we've always been able to learn from each other, share stories with each other. I think that that's the thing, right? Like, are we willing to listen to each other, or do we have to just mute ourselves and not say anything to keep the peace? I don't want relationships with people either way. I don't want people to have to stay silent with me because they feel like if they voice their opinion with me or voice their belief systems or whatever, that we're no longer going to have a friendship. Share your opinion with me. Share your belief. Let's have an open conversation about it, right? Let's educate one another. I would rather have those kinds of friendships. When I talk about the big issue things, right? I'm talking about issues with, like, I don't have anybody in my life today that thinks that being gay is an abnormality, okay? I wouldn't have those people in my life today. I wouldn't have people in my life that disrespect my marriage. I wouldn't have people in my life that disrespect recovery. I'm not gonna have those people in my life. Those things are vital to me, right? Have a different opinion about this or different opinion about that. We can have a conversation about it. We might not agree, but if you're going to say something that's ignorant and disregard my being as a gay man, okay, that has fought my entire life to be myself and be who I am today, that people at 51 are congratulating me for standing up for myself because that's been such a difficult journey. No, I don't need you in my life, you know? And I definitely am not going to mute myself to keep the peace, if that makes sense. And I want the people whose comments I read to know the only reason I'm addressing your comments is not because I don't think that your thoughts, your feelings are valid, because I 100% do, because I used to be there. I used to do that. But I also want you to know, and this is something that I feel like, you know, often we feel like we have to live in the black or the white, we can't live in the gray. And I've learned that life is more about in the gray today, that I can be a kind person. I can be a compassionate person. I can be a giving person. And that doesn't mean that I have to put up with somebody else's crap. That doesn't mean that I have to put up with somebody else's stuff. I don't have to keep the peace by shutting my mouth, you know, or always being, you know, doing something for somebody else. Those relationships can work both ways. All of my relationships in my life today work both ways. You know, and I'm very grateful for that. I don't have a lot of relationships in my life today. I just don't, you know? But I'm very grateful for the relationships that I do have. And I'm very grateful that I am allowed to be who I am today with the people that I surround myself with, because it makes all the difference. And for a long time, I sought the approval or tried to keep peace from people that really didn't matter. You know, I look back on those relationships and we had some good times, but I don't miss them, not at that expense. I just don't, you know? And the reality is life is way too short. I am not willing to get up and not be able to be myself just to make somebody else happy. I'm just not willing to do that. So I just wanted to address that because I thought this was a great point that somebody, you know, brought up. So anyway, let me know what you think in the comment section below. I love you guys, and I will see you tomorrow. Bye.